Good day everyone. Hello and welcome back to the Sterlinx Global channel. I'm Arfal and I'm the founder of Sterlinx Global, a UK-based accounting firm specializing in e-commerce and local businesses. As always, thank you so much for tuning in today. But if it's your first time to be with us, then we are glad you could join us. On this channel, we do a deep dive into different pain points and challenges that our clients usually have and discuss valuable insights that can help entrepreneurs, self-starters and freelancers like yourselves. We are running a series of VAT or value added tax of various member states in the European Union. Today we put that spotlight on French VAT. Now, why that need to discuss VAT in the EU? If you are an e-commerce seller like ourselves, we have got lots of people selling on eBay, Amazon, Shopify and lots of other marketplaces. A lot of our clients do. VAT compliance in every country is one of the trickiest aspects of running your online store. What applies to one country doesn't apply or always mean it's the same for another. So yes, I can relate to how stressful complying with the tax laws to avoid penalties. And mind you, unexpected costs are something I can live without as an e-commerce seller in the trading block. But don't be disheartened. The European market is very financially rewarding despite the VAT related challenges. We at Sterlinx Global understand this roadblock to your operations, so let's get started. As among the largest countries in the European Union, it's no surprise that France has a large market of over 65 million consumers. Tapping into this opportunity with the right product is financially rewarding for sellers on Amazon, Etsy, eBay and other e-commerce platforms. But before doing business, you must first know what French VAT is and how to comply with it. Failure to do so often leads to financial losses. Avoid the risk with our guide outlining the specifics of VAT in France. First thing you should know, VAT registration is required for distant sellers. Most foreign businesses must register for VAT in France. A policy following the EU's broad directives. Among the activities mandating registration is selling to French consumers via the internet and catalogs. Besides distance selling, a foreign company must register for VAT with the tax authorities if they stock goods in consignment warehouses in France. For example, Amazon sellers under the FBA arrangement target in buyers within the EU. Keep in mind that EU-based e-commerce sellers have to be VAT registered as well. There used to be a country-specific threshold to obtain a VAT number in France. This rule applies to those with an annual turnover exceeding €35,000. But the revised rules on cross-border sales implemented by the EU on 1st July 2021, there is only one standard turnover threshold of €10,000, which is applicable across member states within the trading bloc. Whether you are a foreign or EU-based online retailer, it's best to register for French VAT before trading taxable goods to reduce the risk of non-compliance. Secondly, you have to understand VAT registration under the IOSS. Another change in the EU's VAT rules for e-commerce sales was the import one-stop shop, which is called IOSS, a platform that simplifies VAT compliance for non-EU online retailers. Under that system, a seller can register on the website, get a unique identifier number and remit collected VAT on sales made in the EU. The platform also ensures that the correct VAT amount gets credited to the right EU member state greatly improving tax collection and revenues. And for the sellers, they benefit from reduced compliance cost, easier reclaiming of VAT on refunds, and removal of import VAT payments. E-commerce sellers can only use the IOSS for VAT obligations on goods with consignment values of €150 and below, and are not subject to excise duty. If you exceed the 150 threshold, you must collect and remit VAT outside the platform. On third point I want to cover is prepare the documentary requirements for registration. Ideally, you should register for French VAT before doing business in the country as part of compliance. There is no penalty for late registration, but tax authorities can levy high interest on unpaid or delayed VAT due. Moreover, registration cannot be done retroactively. However, it is possible to backdate it in reasonable circumstances when a business intends to correct its status. To register, you must submit an application form to the service, which is called Des Imports des Enterprises, along with the following requirements: a copy of the Articles of Association or Incorporation, an excerpt from your business trade register, VAT certificate if registered elsewhere in the EU, and lastly, original authorization document such as power of attorney if done through a fiscal representative or agent. If you need help registering for French VAT, work with Sterlinx Global. We will take the burden from you so you can focus on expanding your reach in France. Fourthly, I'd like to cover is the fiscal representation depends on your location. As with most countries, foreign companies don't have to establish a local presence to be VAT registered. However, you may need to register through a tax representative. The rule depends on whether your business is based in Europe or outside the Europe. Non-EU e-commerce sellers, except those based in the UK and other jurisdictions under a mutual assistance agreement with France, are obligated to have fiscal representation. But even if an agent isn't mandatory, it's best to hire one to speed up and simplify your VAT number application. Fifth on our must-know list is all imported goods are VATable. Before the revised EU VAT rules were implemented in 2021, imported products with less than 22 intrinsic value were VAT exempt. However, that rule was abused by foreign e-commerce sellers to get ahead of their EU competitors. They undervalue and mislabel the goods to avoid levying VAT, allowing them to sell at a lower price. The EU removed this exemption for consigned goods to stop non-EU retailers from undercutting the competition, preventing fraud and ensure revenue collection. Right guys, so 6 on the list then. As an e-commerce seller, you should know the different French VAT rates. EU member states like France base their tax legislation on EU VAT directives. Under the guidelines, the minimum standard rate is 15%. Currently, the French VAT rate stands at 20%, which is charged on most goods and services. Aside from the standard rate, 3 reduced rates such as 10%, 5.5% and 2.1% are applied to particular product and service catalogs and categories. When you are VAT registered, it's your responsibility to know the correct VAT rate and tax due for your sold goods. Once you have registered, you have VAT obligations. Unfortunately, your responsibility doesn't stop at registration. You must be compliant and confidently at that. Being registered for French VAT means you have obligations to the tax authorities. Part of your compliances is to remit the collected VAT from your online sales and file the corresponding returns. You must complete and submit monthly returns for your VAT liabilities. Unless your annual amount of VAT due is less than 4,000 euros, in which case you have to file quarterly returns. VAT returns should be submitted between the 15th and 24th of the month following covered period and filed electronically. Moreover, the exact filing date depends on your VAT number. Keep in mind that your VAT liability must also be settled upon return filing. If you fail to meet the deadline, expect to pay the following penalties. Number 1, late return submission, which is 10% of the tax due. Number 2, late payment, which is 5% of the VAT liability plus 0.4% interest per month. And number 3 is first formal notice of late submission, which is 40% of the tax due. And that is very, very hefty on if you have to pay a large amount of tax due anyway, and you have to top it up by 40%. So if your tax due was 100k, you'd be 140k. Simple as that. Since electronic filing and payment are mandatory, failure to do either results in fines amounting to 0.2% of the VAT due. Our last point is something you may have already realized, which the VAT compliance is complicated. Meeting your obligations as an e-commerce seller registered for French VAT can be very overwhelming, especially if you're from, say, USA, or you're not from France and you are from anywhere else except Europe or UK. Especially when you are trading in other EU markets as well. Now, reduce the risk of non-compliance and lessen business disruptions with the assistance of tax experts. Let us at Sterlinx Global take the heavy work so you can better use your time and resources instead of worrying over tax audits and hefty fines for oversights. As everything we have discussed can be a lot to take in, so let's do a quick recap of 8 key things you should know regarding French VAT. First, VAT registration is mandatory for distant sellers, especially for e-commerce businesses based outside the EU. However, there is something called the IOSS to register for VAT. But it can be used when the value of your products are 150 euro and below. But if you are selling goods worth more than 150 euro threshold, then you have to pay your VAT liability outside the IOSS. You will need to get a French VAT number for which you have to submit documentary requirements. Also, you may be required to appoint a fiscal representative. Another crucial information out of that list I covered was to remember that all imported goods are VAT liable, and to collect the right tax, keep in mind that there are different VAT rates. The standard rate applicable to most goods is 20%. As a VAT registered online retailer, you have obligations to fulfill. Frankly speaking, compliance can be quite complicated. Now that we have covered nearly everything, we can proceed with some of the commonly asked questions. So, what are the commonly asked questions about the French VAT? First on my list, I would give out of 3 is how long does VAT registration in France take? Answer to that is getting the a unique French VAT number normally takes 4 to 6 weeks. But there are instances when the processing period may be longer. Moreover, you should also allow enough time to prepare your documents and have them translated as required. Factor these considerations before doing business. Next on my list is, can I register for French VAT by myself? It depends whether your business is based in a jurisdiction where a tax agent is required. When you appoint a fiscal representative, they will transact with the French VAT or tax authorities on your behalf. But even if representation is optional, it's advisable and cost-effective to appoint one tax representative like Sterlinx. It's better to leave VAT computation to professionals. That's your last question. Now, if you ask yourself, is it better to leave VAT computation to professional? I would answer that while you can calculate your VAT liabilities yourself, the tax is time consuming and prone to mistakes. French tax authorities will penalize enormous payments and returns, so oversights can cost your business. When you work with us, we can guarantee your accuracy. Right, so doing business as an e-commerce seller in France opens up a lot of opportunities with its immense potential market. However, it's critical to understand how French VAT works on distance selling, whether you are a non-EU or EU-based company. Stay on top of your VAT compliance in France or any other EU member state with Sterlinx Global. We are ready to assist you from registration to returns filing. So folks, that's all for today. I have covered a lot. We hope today's discussion has cleared the air out of the French VAT. To see how we can help you, do check out our site sterlinxglobal.com. We have a lot to accounting related articles that could help you stay in the know. So if you enjoyed our tips and tricks or want to learn something more similar, please like, follow and subscribe to our media channels. We have a tax community forum, so feel free to post your questions there. We will be linking these below. Again, my name is Arfol of Sterlinx Global and I hope to catch you on the next one. Have a nice day ahead. Bye bye now.